Welcome back. Well, talking a little bit of law and business, we've got a man who manages to combine both. Mr. Dapo Oyewumi is the CEO of Center for Law and Business. He joins us virtually. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, much is being said about the business environment and the climate, how we need to clean it all up and ensure we do get it right. But in terms of the judiciary, there's a lot of focus as well, and the expectations at that, because we've heard the president say he is going to go on with a lot more reforms in the judiciary. But when that comment came through, even though he came up with another explanation, Senator Bulkuchua, about the president, former president of the Court of Appeal, there were different perspectives. We didn't get opportunity to get your impression of what you made of it, even though the NBA themselves also put up a statement. But that, in a manner of speaking, put some searchlights on the judiciary. How did you see all of what went down, if it has blown away?
Chamberlain, and thank you for having me again. The statement credited to the president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, about illegal orders. For us as lawyers, it's difficult for someone who is not a lawyer to determine what is illegal. So it's going to be very difficult, and as the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association has stated, legal orders, judicial orders remain valid and subsisting until they are vacated. So it's important that the president works within the law. And I can recall that when he was the governor of Lagos State, he used the law to a large extent, against the federal government at that time. He won some very landmark cases, creating the local councils that we have in Lagos State today, and a lot of other things acting within the boundaries of the law. So I will expect him that he will also work within the boundaries of the law now that he's president. If any judicial order or legal order by a court is considered unacceptable, I will not use the word illegal, then there's a built-in system for it. You go on appeal, you challenge the order, and then you get the order vacated if it is indeed illegal or if it is indeed unacceptable. But it's not in the realm of the executive arm of government to determine which order is legal or which order is illegal. It's clear about that. There's nothing that can be done about that one. All judicial orders are valid until they are vacated. And let's not also forget that the judicial arm of government is an arm of government. And the principle is that the three arms of government are equal. Not one is superior to the other. Of course, because the executive arm of government is executive and controls the purse strings, it may seem to have an advantage over the other arms of government. But the three arms of government, the judiciary, the legislative arm of government, and the judicial arm of government are all equal amongst themselves. So due respect must be given to judicial orders and legal orders amongst the three arms of government amongst themselves. That's what I would say about that statement about illegal orders.
So what can you tell us as, or describe as the huge, if there's any such thing as the biggest impediment to reforms in the judiciary? Do they need the executive to weigh in? Can it be done internally within the judiciary themselves?
Well, I would say that the greatest bane affecting this country, whether in the judiciary or in the legislative arm of government or in all arms of government, is the people. We have systems that are meant to work, but in implementing the systems, then different things come to play: personal interest, selfish interest, and the interest of the nation is put behind, and everybody is looking at their personal interests. The present system should work to produce the kind of judiciary we're looking at. Better lawyers, trained lawyers, lawyers that are selfless, and the people themselves need to help the judiciary. The judiciary don't go about asking for any favors from people. People go to meet them and say, oh, please do this, please do that. And we're all Nigerians. We're coming from the same stock of people. The judiciary, the judges are not brought from a different country or born by a different set of people. They are Nigerian. And they are affected by the vagaries and the system and all the challenges that face Nigerians as a whole. So where there's a will to do things properly and everybody decides that we need to do things properly, then it will be possible, even with what we have now, to have a better judicial system. The working environment for the judges is not the best. It's absolutely not the best. You go to some courts and it's challenging, it's difficult. You know, it's difficult working in those environments. Then the administrative support system for the judges themselves, it's not exactly the best. Still writing in shorthand, typing, power outages, hot environment, unpleasant environment, and even a lot of political pressure being brought to bear upon the judges, even in the appointments of the judges in the first place. There's a lot of politics and witty dealing that go into it, and that's bound to affect the judicial system. And then there's also this misconception about judgments and things like that. It's, oh, the judges have done this and that. Don't forget that the judges deal with the evidence that's brought before them. And in most of the criminal cases, especially those by EFCC and all those corruption-related cases, the cases are lost by the prosecution. You tender evidence that is not acceptable in evidence by the law. The judge has no option but to give judgment based on the evidence before him. You know, and so, but to the average man, oh, the judges have been saying, they forget that perhaps the evidence or maybe the level of awareness that the evidence that was brought before the judges do not meet the requirements to prove the crime. And the judge has no choice to give judgment in accordance with the evidence that's before him. And that's the challenge you have. I'm not saying that there's no need to take a thorough review of the system and see how it can be made better. The entire nation, every aspect of human endeavor in this country needs a review. From banking, the executive itself, the executive is bloated, in my own opinion. Government is too large. Expenses there are so many leakages everywhere. The legislative arm has its own problems. We're not sure whether they hire the legislative aides that they are meant to hire. The quality of research that goes into the legislation leaves a lot to be desired. Sometimes the legislation is knee-jerk reaction to what's going on in society. So it's a whole gamut of problems that's facing the entire nation at different aspects of the country, the judiciary, the legislation, and the executive arm of government. So there's a need, honestly, for
you've painted a picture here, if I may come in here, you've painted a picture of a humongous task before not just the president and his team, but also a humongous task for the entire nation. I mean, talking about reforms needed in the executive, in the legislature, and in the judiciary. But if one wants to look at it, I mean, standing on the premise that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, I mean, that's where all the laws are interpreted, and that's where one hopes that at the end of the day, by one reason or the other, the common man might be able to get justice, and then equity is assured for the rest of the people. At what point, or where do we start? If we look at it from this side, for instance, the president has come up to give a unified, sign that law that ensured unified retirement age for the judges. You talked about the environment where the judges work and the equipment with which they have to work with. There are those who are concerned about the curriculum that's even passed, that's even taught to the lawyers in the law schools. All of these things put together, where should we start when we talk about judicial reforms in Nigeria?
Okay, thanks for that question. Okay, we look at the system where it is. You mentioned the unified retirement age for judges. There's some controversy over that because I think that law was presented to the former President Buhari, and he didn't sign it. At the point that he didn't sign it, and the number of days for which bills need to be passed to law has elapsed, that law really, I think, has elapsed with the last National Assembly. And I'm not sure ought to have been brought back to the present president. There's still some issue about that. And then there's also the issue about the commencement of that law. Does it commence immediately? Does it apply to judges that are appointed after the law? Those issues don't seem to be quite clear in that law. And so that also leaves issues left to be determined or to be reviewed so that that can be looked at properly. Then you look at low-hanging fruits. The environment of the judges can be looked at immediately. That's something that you can look at immediately. How do the courts appear? The supporting personnel, the administrative personnel for the judges, because that's very important, where the judges are supported by effective personnel that understand what the problems are and how the judicial system should work. That can be looked at immediately. And then the more long-term issues, whether the curriculum of the Nigerian law school, I'm not sure that there is any major problem with that. If you ask me, I think my own challenge with that will be the implementation of the curriculum, the running and management of things, and not necessarily the curriculum itself. That is the way I would look at it. And then you look at all other issues that pertain to the judiciary. But again, I repeat that it is not only the judiciary that has a problem. Right now, the entire system needs a revamping, but we're focusing on the judiciary, and that's my own opinion. We can look at the low-hanging fruits, the support system for the judges, their operating environment, their terms of service, and all that. Those don't take much difficulties. Those are issues that can be looked at almost immediately and can be improved upon. And once that's improved upon, then the more longer-term issues can be reviewed. That's my opinion.
All right, Ayo and Kayode.
Right, thank you, Neota. Just to follow up on that point you made about the bill which was signed into law by the president, that harmonization bill. Well, I hate to think that the president does not get the right kind of advice, because you'll expect at that level he gets top-notch advice at the very top level. So what could have happened? I mean, a bill that you say the time has elapsed, then being dug out for the president to append his signature, and signature was appended. I mean, what could have happened, and what kind of redress should be sought such that we don't build on, quote, illegality, as it were?
Well, let me say this. Okay, let me say this. There's been, what I would expect is the issue having been brought up should be reviewed to see whether or not that law has been properly passed into law. And if it hasn't been passed into law, then it should be declared a nullity. I'm not against the principle of the unification of the judicial retirement age for judges. No, I'm not. All I'm saying is that whatever is to be done should be done properly. And we know that once a law lapses with one National Assembly, then the next National Assembly has to take it up and look at it and start the whole process again. And that will be the solution here as well. The entire system, the entire law and bill can be looked at again. And then if it's deemed passed, we already have an indication of the thinking of the present president that is in favor of that law. Then let the present National Assembly look at it and let it be passed properly. So there is no controversy. Because you can imagine judges going beyond the age 65 now and going on, and then lawyers are then challenging the legality or the validity of their judgments. It's going to be, it could be catastrophic. So my opinion is that the matter should be looked properly so that there is no controversy at all. Of course, in every issue of law, there are different shades of opinion. So some people might think that there's not a problem with it, some think that there's a problem with it. Opinions have been expressed by various people, and it is best that law is certain, so that everybody is certain, everybody knows the expectations, and there are no uncertainties. So that will be my position on that. Let's look at it, review it properly, and take the necessary steps that need to be taken so that the certainty of the law is sacrosanct.
I mean, I wonder who then will be looking to for this. We don't have an Attorney General or Minister of Justice that can maybe provide an insight into this just yet. So who exactly is meant to be speaking? Is it now the MBA? Is it the body of benches itself? I just wonder who should be taking this on, because it's a very important point you made. I imagine some of them are due for retirement, but because of this law that has been signed in, they will stay on. And I mean, as you clearly said, what if those judgments are challenged and then you have to now go all the way back to start uncovering or at least undoing those things? So who should take charge of this, just as a final one on that point?
Well, all lawyers and the different arms of the law are stakeholders in this matter. And in fact, the entire nation are stakeholders on the matter. So we have the Nigerian Bar Association, so they can look at it. You also mentioned the body of benchers. Those are all highly respected arms of the profession. We expect that an Attorney General and Minister of Justice will be appointed very soon. And so the issue is there. And so before it gets out of hand, any of those stakeholders will look at it. There's a principle of locus standi. Otherwise, would have said even some of the lawyers like ourselves to begin to raise the issue, but there's a major principle of locus standi. You have the locus to start an issue, to start litigation or to bring an action in court. Or otherwise, you would have said that can look at it. But government itself can look at it. Government has to be responsible.
Right.
When issues like this raised, government is, have we made a mistake? Don't forget that this was a law that was passed within the very first few days of the new presidency. Was he misadvised? We don't know. So if the issue has been brought up, the government itself can look at it and make redress.
Right. After all, there's nothing wrong in owning up to a mistake, and I think there's always been that misconception in governance that no, you don't own up. Even when you make a mistake, you find a way to sidestep and say, well, we meant to do that, and then move on. But I'd like you to speak to this talk about judicial reforms. Yes, you've talked about this, but the angle of separation of powers that has been raised, and I wonder what you think about it. Because, I mean, let's be honest, you can only, there's a certain level to which you will empower another arm of government, honestly. Perhaps you don't want it to be even more powerful than you. So who should really be taking charge of these judicial reforms? Can the executive appropriately empower the judiciary as it ought to be, knowing fully well that that will be your check and balance? So should the executive be the one championing this judicial reforms, as it were?
Okay. The judicial arm of government comprises of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, jurists, and Supreme Court judges. You have the National Judicial Council with all its members, including lawyers, former judges, former chief judges of the various states. They can all come down and decide to look at where there's a problem. The Nigerian Bar Association also plays a very, in fact, don't forget that the Nigerian Bar Association is like the regulatory body for lawyers, and its impact in the judicial system cannot be overemphasized. That's very important. So I would look at it and say that a position of self-regulation, self-introspection by the judicial arm of government itself, saying that there has been so much crime by society over the way we've been doing things. Some of them are justified, some are not justified, some are issues of misunderstanding, people not understanding the way the law works and all that. So let's look at ourselves and do what might be best so as to gain the confidence. Because Chamberlain talked about the law being hope of the common man. The unfortunate thing is that these days, people tend to take the law into their hands. They're looking for alternative means of settling disputes, and that is beginning to show that confidence in the judicial system is being eroded. Matters go to the police, civil matters, people will go and report civil matters to the police. People tend to criminalize matters, simple contracts between themselves. They go to the police, they go to FCC. They try to criminalize it so that they can get the police involved, they can get the FCC involved. And rather than those bodies saying, oh, this does not concern us, again, the problem of the nation, they all take it up. Some of them become debt collectors in the performance of their roles. They become debt collectors, concerning themselves with matters that ought not to concern them. So I would put it that a self-introspection by the judicial would be a very, very good starting, aided by the Nigerian Bar Association, of course, and the other major bodies, the body of benchers and everybody. We looked at it. But don't forget that whatever is done, you need financing, which comes from the executive arm of government.
Perhaps we can take that on. Mr. Yomi, perhaps we can take that, separately, because it is indeed significant. But the issues you raised about other, security agencies of governments having a role to play in this and taking on responsibilities that are not essentially theirs, it calls for concern, doesn't it? It sounds to me like what you're saying is the entire judicial reforms thing is a multi-stakeholder thing, not just something that has to come from the executive, not even just the judiciary, but then other agencies of government enforcing laws that they may not have, that may not be under their remit. How do we begin to streamline that?
Well, a proper understanding of the position. And again, it comes back to the people. I would always say that the starting point for us to get this country moving is the people. our mindset. Because these other arms of government, they are quite aware that they know that those are not their remits. But it is just a way of probably boosting their income, aiding friends. You know, we all like to ask for favors. We all like to use the powers and the connections that we have in government. Oh, I know this person, I know that person. So the entire mindset has to change.
Okay, well,
the
on
policeman that's looking into the landlord tenant or people who have simple contracts knows that he's not meant to do so.
Well, Mr. Oyewumi, on that same issue, I mean, you said you've brought it back to the people, but most of the time, it would seem like even the people themselves are not aware of some of these laws, or perhaps I should say their rights. Some laws are released, constitutional amendments are put out, but people have no idea. Consequently, they can't even claim the rights that they are not aware of. What do you see? Do you see a significant challenge in the area of communicating the laws to the people? Because there are quite a number, and not just the awareness of the law, but the enforcement of the laws by the people themselves. How do we communicate it to them?
I would take it beyond that. I would take it to the level of education and awareness of the nation. It's not just the law communicating the law to the people. The level of, how will I say it, the level of illiteracy has gone up in the country significantly from the past days. And people are so focused on living, surviving. And of course, you know that the judicial system tends to move quite slowly. And people are looking for quick fixes. I want a solution to my problem. Someone is owing me money. I want that money tomorrow because perhaps that's the money I've been relying on. So if I go to court the next 1 or 2, let me go to my friend in EFCC. Let me go to my friend in the police and tell him a story and let him harass that person for me. So it's a myriad of problems, So I would take it even to the level of education, information, and awareness. And in that respect, I will be looking at the orientation agents. The National Orientation Agency, in my opinion, has a lot of work to do. We need to begin to orientate our minds away from the present values, the way we do things, the quick fixes, the cutting corners, the illegalities that are bound in the nation right now. We need to be able to change our minds. And like you said, some people don't know they're right. Some people don't even know it's wrong. I remember many years ago, I've forgotten what the issue was, a lady came on television and said somebody should be beaten and punished and thrown into jail until she confesses to a crime. She didn't mean any harm. As far as she's concerned, it is proper for someone to be tortured to confess. So if such a person is tortured, if it was hard on, she will accept it. And that was the proper way to go. So it's a big problem. It's a major one. Well, it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
The level of poverty, the level of education, the level of awareness, the level of the law, the processes of the legal system, how it works, and all that. So it's a major issue here, I would say. But we can start somewhere, and I'm sure we'll get there when we start.
And clearly, lots of talking points, not just talking points, action points from this conversation. I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Dapo Oyewumi, CEO, Center for Law and Business.
Absolutely.
Deals with the business of law and the law of business. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Well, let's take a look at the mails you have sent in. Clearly, the conversation around subsidy, the judiciary, I mean, they're topping the feedback we're getting. This one from Alalade Ademola. It's a tweet that says it is high time the judiciary in Nigeria is strengthened, and the steps taken by Mr. President to ensure this is realized is a welcome development. Rule of law needs to be maintained for us to get things working properly in the country, he says.
Well, this one is from Treshfield. Says Tinubu should be fair by not just probing deeper into the subsidy scam, but everyone involved should be nabbed and brought to book. He did same to Godwin Emefiele, right? Then he should also exercise his power in this subsidy scam. Arrest them all.
Well, we have this email from Shamus Oni, and he says, on the fuel subsidy scam, he says, if we have to unravel the truth about this thing called fuel subsidy scam, then the government of the day must be sincere enough to carry out a holistic forensic audit of the whole process leading to the payment of money for the subsidy. By this, I mean the government should go through all documents raised through the process leading to the final payment. All MDAs saddled with the responsibilities for this monitoring and evaluation should be interrogated and investigated to establish the authenticity of the payments made to the recipients. However, the capability of the government to unravel the truth about the whole process will be determined by the political will to do so. Shamus Oni.
Well, on the same subject matter, Oladele says one can make legal arguments for economic rights in Nigeria, as it seems like the past and present governments have not been held accountable for failing economic policies. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the General Assembly of the UN under Article 25, states that there's a right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of each person and their family, including basic food, medical care, social services, and security. It also referenced in some of our local laws as well as our 1999 Constitution, as it aims to protect and promote economic activities. Well, we thank you all for your messages. That is the show today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Don't forget to keep them coming. We will be back next time. Have a very good day, everybody. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
And I'm Neo Tagbe. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Please, who is doing something about this traffic on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway? Have a good day.